It's nice to have all of you here.
Mm.
Yeah, so welcome to today's program. I'm Priscilla Ayoyi. I work as a research assistant and teaching assistant at the Lagos Business School. So once again, welcome to the program today. So without so much ado, this is a webinar on women economic empowerment. We projects in Nigeria to actually commemorate the International Women's Day, which is held on the 8th of March every year. So the theme of the past International Women's Day, which was held on Tuesday, is Break the Bias. This webinar is actually supported by some of our amazing partners. We have Development Research and Project Center, DRPC. We have the Partnership for Advancing Women in Economic Development, PAUD. We also have AWITA, that's known as the Association of Women in Trade and Business. Then together we have Business Day Media and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So without so much time wasted, we'll just go straight to introduce our speakers for the day. So the first speaker we have on our list is Professor Mrs. Oma Inserim Wolu, who is the director at the Center for Gender and Development Studies, and also a professor in the Department of Sociology in the University of Port Harcourt. Then our second speaker for today is Dr. Mrs. Awa Abdul Karim. She's a development economist, deputy registrar and lecturer at Kwara State University. Then the third speaker for today is Mrs. Chigozie Eke. She's a program director and gender advocate at Wisdom Tool Initiative in Abuja. Then we have the fourth speaker in person of Mr. Victor Aliko, who is a development economist and economic analyst with Business Day Media. Then our last speaker for today is Mr. Emmanuel Musa Bala, who is an entrepreneur par excellence, a leadership expert, a founder of Inspire ICT and Digi Health, based in Kaduna. So without so much ado, each speaker has 20 minutes to present and talk briefly about women economic empowerment in Nigeria. So if you have any questions, please just type it in the chat box. So we move on to our first speaker for today, in person of Professor Mrs. Oma Wolu. Please go ahead, Ma.
Well, good afternoon, listeners. My pleasure being amongst you.
Welcome, Ma.
The topic sent to me was trying to talk about reviewing women's economic sustainability in Nigeria. When this was sent to me, I said, before we review it, we should be able to actually find out if women are economically empowered. And if this review is in line or to support international United Nations International Women's Day celebration, which was held on Tuesday. In fact, I want to commend your group. United Nations, the umbrella organization for the world, had actually come to the realization that women, though a folk in society, suffer a lot of disadvantages. And for that reason, that day was set aside for the world to remember women. First, you want to celebrate those who have achieved in the areas of endeavor. You also want to use the period to review the challenges women daily faced or face daily as they try to carry out their life enterprises. And then finally, to also provide solutions to the numerous problems women are daily faced. So that is why we're commending you. International Women's Day theme for this year, gender equality today for sustainable tomorrow, break the bias. If you look at that, it's actually talking about sustainability. And then what is sustainability? Sustainability is the ability to use the available resources now. In fact, you use it prudently for you to be able to bequeath in fact, a healthy one for the future generation. So to that effect, this theme is up and it's accepted. And I want to say, before I go further, I want to say United Nations since 1975 have been celebrating International Women's Day. And you can see the milestone it had gone. And for that reason, they had goals. One of the goals in 2000 was Millennium Development Goal. The Millennium Development Goal was more centralized towards less developed nations. But having gone back to the drawing board and reviewed what they had, they also realized that the much more advanced societies are not excluded. Therefore, they came up with the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015. And then Agenda 5, when that sustainable development is talking about empowering women. And if you talk about empowerment, you won't be talking about empowerment without looking about economies. For us, in sociology, when you want to talk about development, you want to look at all the structures that exist in society. What do I mean? The structures here can also mean the institutions that make up society. Now, all the institutions that make up society, we want to know how women have fared in their activities. But I want to sit here to tell you, as for today, that women are found in all spheres of life, in spite of all the challenges. So that was why I tried to, look at the United Nations Sustainable Development, United Nations Vision and Mission and Objective, which I've tried to explain. Now, women are found everywhere. The question you will ask, in spite of all the challenges, how did they get to where they are? Yes, women are resolute to ensure that they survive in the world of us. The world of us, we are not practically created by women. I used to tell people when I meet with them, when we want to discuss gender issues, that at the point of birth, there is or there was equality. But at the point of interaction, that is where you begin to make choice. What you give to A or what you give to B, that is where we begin to discover, are we talking about equality or equity? Now, whichever you're talking about, is there a gap? Yes, there is a gap between the males and the females in the society. Even though the males and females, they are born into different families. The family, which we say is the smallest functional unit of the society. That is why the gap we discover in gender issues started. Where parents, especially in this part of the world, where you say, they are patriarchal, where parents will say, we have 7 girls, no boy. We have 3 girls, no boys. So they start sourcing for boys anyhow. And that led to preference when they begin to distribute whatever resources that is found in the society. And that's where the gap existed. And let me quickly go back to history. At the point the white men or the colonialists made contact with Africans, Nigeria in particular, women were doing the things they know how to do best at their homes, around their homes, and their farms and all that. So women are primarily primary producers. All that they produced were used within and around their homes for the survivability of the members of their family. Now, that didn't change greatly. You may also recall that during that period, men married more than 1 wife. Some could marry 6, some could marry 7, some could marry 8. All these women were sources of labor to their husbands. And whatever was accrued, was handed over to the man who is the head of the family. The man who is the head of the family distributes who gets what and how. But we're saying at the point the white men came and also came with education. When they started sending, when our people started sending their children to school, most women were not sent to school. The men were sent to school. Therefore, the men became economically much more empowered than the women because they were paid. When they were paid, they used their money to buy valuables into the family. They built houses. While women went to farms, fetch water, cook the food, and clean the houses. So such labor were never paid for, even till date. Even as we speak, as I speak as a professor, I still do domestic work at home, which is not being paid for. And so what we're saying is that in spite of all the challenges, you've been born into a society where there's sex preference, the women still have struggled to find themselves in all spheres. You have women in management, you have women in education, you have women in industry, you have women in entertainment world, you have women entrepreneurs, you have women who are in business. What we're saying is that they are there. So that's my own idea. Before you review their sustainability, are they there? Yes, they are there. We have women in the military. We have women everywhere. So I'm saying women are found everywhere. But our question is, if we use statistics, what is the percentage? How many women are found at the arena of decision making? And you know that he who makes decision actually will make decision to suit him. You can also remember what happened in the National Assembly 2 weeks ago, where majority of members of the National Assembly had to throw away bills that were related to women. Why? Because those who occupy positions of advantage, they want to remain and continue to enjoy what you call status quo. Happily, a lot of women have raised their voices. Some well-meaning Nigerian men have also raised their voices. But it tells you how retrogressive this society is. A society where the labor of women are not being recognized. After a woman would have done all that she would have done at home, contributing to the growth of the home, you still tell this woman that she has not contributed anything. You may also want to recall that sometimes when there are crises in marriages, a man will walk up to his wife and say, "Madam, you leave my house today." Meanwhile, all the contributions she made before that house was built, nobody considers. So having said that, I'm trying to say, yes, women are found everywhere, but in negligible number. And then if you want to now review, it, I'm talking about sustainability. Sustainability is talking about the future, the tomorrow. I still want to also let us know that women are still found in the job arena that don't have social security. Because you see a lot of women in the area of catering, you see a lot of women in the area of small businesses, maybe where they do cleaning, where they also help to care for other people who are ill. This situation, or they are secretaries to some persons. In Nigeria, there's really no laid down rule anywhere that there's pay disparity. But the office you occupy determines how much you get at the end of the day. So for that reason, those women that you find in these subsectors that do more of caring, menial jobs, certainly their resources will not be the same with those who occupy managerial positions in corporate establishments and big organizations, or who are in political situations, political offices. So what we are trying to say, for us to talk about sustainability, a few things must be done, and it must be done well and proper, and it must be done by Nigerians. That means that policies, laws must be made to favor women. That means that at the point of employment, there must be some, it may be unwritten, but subtle way of creating room for more women, rather than asking for their back, what does her back look like? What does her leg look like? Or who does she know? We should be able to be given opportunity where women should be able to express themselves. And those who merit it should be given such positions on merit. But considering the odds around them, some waivers must be made to bring women into positions of decision making. Like in this country today, I would tell you, even though we say we have women in our state assemblies and national assembly, how many women are there? So you can clearly tell us that the number of women in the decision-making arena in Nigeria today is not such to bring about sustainability and the economic status of women. Therefore, what should we do? One, the policies, which are people, whether in your home or in your offices or as a government representative, should be such that should be inclusive, where women must be given an advantage or positions where they can be chosen when need be. You remember in Nigeria, we have what you call federal character principle. Even at that point, they first of all check, what state do you come from? Now, what is your sex? Before they start giving you appointment. So we are saying that those who occupy positions of authority should make conditions easier for women to occupy positions of decision making by appointing women. All institutions, including Nigeria as a whole, should have a gender policy that is women friendly. Now, women are considered in certain study areas as sandwich generation. Sandwich generation in that women, they're involved in caring for their husbands, their children, their parents, their grandparents, and anybody around them. So at any given time, a woman had a lot in her plate to pick. Therefore, governments should also make policies, or offices should create situations where there will be people who will assist in taking off some of the care burdens that women experience, where husbands, also brothers, should be parts of care going on in the homes. Now, another point I also want to bring about here is that we talk about ICTC. Now, last year, International Women's Day was talking about digital generation, our generation. Now, there are a lot of smartphones, Android phones everywhere. But those women you find and those women who are sustaining themselves, the market women, I can tell you that most of them do not have the smartphones. So they may not be able to use their smartphone to get loans from the banks. Now, when you go to the bank to go and get your loan, they will want to know, oh, is your husband going to be a signatory? Give us landed property. But you should also remember that the woman has already been excluded from property rights in her home of birth and in her home of marriage. Having also known that Nigeria's, there's a policy, or there was a judgment 2 years ago where we have the OKJ case, but women are still denied right to property. So this such policy where ICTC will enable women to have access to finance should be encouraged. And we should also make allocation of resources available. Let us say, for instance, in your community, where if they are agrarian in nature, where land is a means of production, women should also have access. But in most in most communities where land is a means of production, women don't have access. You can only have access to land through your husband. And then in this part of Nigeria where I'm speaking from, they were primarily agrarian. Their land have been shared, parcelized. Before, the land was held custody for all by the traditional ruler, but now it's been parcelized, and most men have sold the property. So the women are also excluded. They don't have property to land. They don't have right to property. They don't have right to land. They don't have access to financial support. They don't also have government backing. So what do we want women to do? So for us to talk about sustainability, all these laws, all these programs, they have to change to suit women. I tried to make certain recommendations, which I will, when I send my slide to them, you also see it. Attitudinal change is a very important one. Attitude towards women must change, where people view women as sex objects. A woman is a property. A woman is not a property. She is an individual, a full-fledged individual who has right to choose how to live her life and who to live her life with. And that also includes her reproductive right, her sexual and reproductive right. Woman has a right to choose who she has to share her body with. And when that right is recognized, it will bring about reduction in what we term as sexual and gender-based violence that is predominant in most communities. Sometimes you see bus drivers fighting with women on the street because the bus driver feels that he's physically stronger. So attitudinal change, where National Orientation Agency, we will have to do a lot. And for those of you who are looking into gender issues, you must put it on the table all the time. That is why I also encourage that International Women's Day should be something to be commemorated, because it becomes a reminder to each and every one of us that every woman you meet everywhere is a human being and has the right to exist, and nobody should trample on her right, whether she's educated or not. And we are saying that child care is not an exclusive reserve for women. Men of the homes should be part of childcare. These are some of the things that could be done to bring about sustainability, because when a woman has somebody who helps her to take off some of the burdens at home, her performance in the office, I tell you, will be to the optimum, and everybody will be happy for it. And then we'll be talking about development. Then we'll be talking about sustainability. Thank you very much for listening. Are you with me? Wow, nobody's responding. Hello? Oh, you're with me. Oh, great. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Walu. That was a very beautiful presentation. Talking about women's sustainability and also chipping in the SDG goals that talks about economic development for women and empowerment. So without so much ado, we'll just move on to the next speaker on the list. Person of Dr. Awa Abdul Karim, please, it's over to you. Dr. Awa. Is Dr. Awa? Yeah. Okay. So since Dr. Awa is not here, so we'll just move on to the third speaker, Mrs. Chigozie Eke. Are you ready, ma'am?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chigozie. I'm Program Director. of Wisdom Tools Initiative. Today, we are talking about women economic sustainability. The sustainability of women refers to practices that support long-term economic growth of women. It can be analyzed through some economic factors like unemployment, finance and business, entrepreneurship, and skill acquisition. from what we're saying, advancing women economic stability in business. Women are economically exploited. They are politically marginalized and socially discriminated. Based on this, women need help because women form part of the majority of the poor in the society. Women need to come up financially, just as we are celebrating women today. Women need to come up with their finances so that they will be able to take care of their demands and their private life. Their finance means to manage money and activities such as investment, borrowing, lending, and budgeting. Women are not advanced at all in the areas of finance and businesses due to our the patriarchy, the level of illiteracy. Majority of women are illiterate. Unequal distribution of power and resources, lack of education, limited access to managerial position. The glass ceiling effect. Some women are not allowed to pass some level in managerial position. Not really that they're not able to do the work, but just the fact that they are women. And women will lack access to assets, and there is increased discrimination towards women. All right, ways I think that this could be achieved, it's to increase loan eligible to women, emphasis on women in education, improve access to healthcare because some women don't have access to healthcare. There are some places in Nigeria, just because you're a woman, if you're not escorted to hospital by your man, you won't be taken care of. It's that bad. We need to close the gender gap in workplaces. Give proper value to women work. Because there are certain work women will do, they just relegate it to background and say, it's just a woman that done that. Involve women and girls in decision-making processes. Just like Prof stated, in decision-making process flow is all dominated by men. In Nigeria, not quite long, a gender bill was thrown away. We have to stop this discrimination against women, stop sexual harassment, engage men for gender equality. Yes, we have to engage men in this fight for gender equality because men are the culprits of gender inequality in Nigeria. Advancing women economic stability by economic empowerment, investing in women's economic empowerment. I use the Sustainable Development Goals. I use the SDG 8, which talked about decent work and economic growth. This sets path towards gender equality, poverty eradication, and inclusive economic growth. Women empowerment involves providing women with education, training, skills that they need to enable them find work, to enable them have income and improve their private life. Advancing women. In order to achieve this, there are obstacles that we need to tackle. Obstacles in achieving this economic empowerment, they are lack of resources, lack of information, gender discrimination, influence of cultural values. I guess this is one of it. All the subjugation of women are based on our cultural values. The cultural values of female genital mutilation, early or child marriage, forced marriage, culture of silence, that because you're a woman, you don't have to talk, you always keep quiet. The nutrition taboo. There are some places, there are certain good food that are not meant for women to eat. It's only meant for the men. The emotional abuse. Some men believe that women should be emotionally abused. Even things they don't know about, things that is not out of their making, they will put it to them that is their fault. Just like I want to link this emotional abuse to a book I read some time ago when I was in the secondary school, that Things Fall Apart. It's a book written by Chinua Achebe. One can notice a lot of gender discrimination in that book. Women are not allowed to interfere in religious, political, or economic matters and Things Fall Apart. Women don't have right to ask questions. As a woman, you're supposed to keep quiet. And that's the culture of silence. This culture of silence has to be broken. In the novel, things fall apart. Men are seen as everything, while the woman is nothing. Women are viewed as inferior. This is segregated. During that time, Chinua Achebe was writing that book, the main occupation of that society was agriculture. There's segregation in farming. There is a men's crops and there is a woman's crop. There are certain crops a woman dare not farm, even if you know how to do it. That's the yam. They call yam king of crops then. Women's crop are cocoyam, cassava, and beans. But funny enough, these days in Nigeria, beans is no more a woman's crop because beans is quite expensive in the market now. But then in Things Fall Apart, it was regarded as a woman's crop to farm. The separation between the man's world and the woman's world in Umuofia culture at that time was something else. The women were not being considered in any way. The women were being seen as nothing. Okonkwo's father then, Unoka, Okonkwo didn't like his father because in their environment then, he was being referred to as a woman because Unoka was very coward, lazy, and he borrows a lot. The farming of the king of crops, Unoka wasn't doing it. And so this made Okonkwo to wear his masculinity everywhere he goes, whatever he does. Even when he shouldn't have killed Ikemefuna, Okonkwo went ahead and killed Ikemefuna just to prove that he's a strong man, to prove his masculinity. Mr. Brown in Things Fall Apart was a representative of white civilization. Mr. Brown in Things Fall Apart visits Umuofia to preach Christianity. Unlike other men, Okonkwo and Obieri, he shunned masculinity. He promotes peace. He respects Umuofia's local system of gender inequality and brutal experiences that women are experiencing there. But Mr. Brown proved successful in changing the local fabric of excessive masculinity and women oppression. And Mr. Brown did what DPRC is presently doing, that is, addressing the felt needs of the vulnerable and the excluded, which women are the majority. Apart from this, lack of education, women are not being considered. A lot of women are uneducated. The patriarchal ideology of the society is not helping matters at all. Women are to be undermined, both in the society, at home, and in church. A woman's opinion is actually not being considered. The worst part of it is that even situations and experiences concerning women, men take decision for women because women are not being represented in the decision-making floor. Men, they sit down there and take decisions for matter that doesn't concern them. And women are not being consulted for it. In attempting to overcome this obstacle facing women, economic empowerment, women are equipped to participate in the economy. We need to equip women to participate in the economy. We can do that by encouraging education. Education is the key because if a woman is educated, she'll be able to stand and defend herself, at least to an extent. Easy access to information concerning economic empowerment. There may be economic empowerment around, but there is no access of the women that need this information to get it. Provide adult education. That one means to be educated when you were small doesn't mean you can't get education at whatever age. I know of a woman that started primary school at 40 years because she was insulted. She was president of Women of a Catholic church. At a point, the women came up with a rule that for any woman to be their leader, that woman must be a graduate. Because she had economic power, but she didn't go to school. Of course, they took the position from her. She made up her mind that from that 40 years that she's going to start primary school, because she dropped out at primary 5. She did the primary school before she got married. but she got married to a wealthy man. This woman was bent on it. She went to primary school at that age, went to secondary school, finished it, got admission to the Polytechnic Okoda in Anambra State, and had the Haitian. Watching her doing that, I was so encouraged that anybody can queue in and do that. Age is not a factor. We need to ensure policies and social protection system for women. That this boils down again, that women are not represented in where these policies are being made. Therefore, we are not being considered. We need to invest in women's organization and businesses. There are some businesses that we know that women do. Women need help. We need a decent work for women. A decent work environment for women. Not the work that when you get to office, they'll be looking at you, looking at your back, your leg, or all these kind of things. So now, women need a decent work environment. Discourage gender discrimination. There is so much gender discrimination in our society. We need to promote gender equality. Gender equality is good because when we talk about gender is all about socially constructed characteristics of men and women, such as norms and roles, and relationships of men and women. That is, norms are accepted standard of doing things in that particular society because there are norms that are accepted in one society, in another society is a taboo. For instance, in Nigeria, there are some places, there are some communities where, for instance, the issue of breadwinning and decision-making in the family falls on a man. And there are some communities where it's the woman that is the breadwinner and her decision is final. So we need to encourage women. Today, just as we are here now, we are all talking about International Women's Day. It's a day to celebrate the progress made towards achieving gender equality and women empowerment. Gender equality and women empowerment. UN started celebrating this in 1975. Internationally, 8th of March is the day set aside for this celebration. So now, in an attempt to analyze all these things, to empower the women, so that she will not be an instrument of abuse in the hands of men. Because from what I see in my environment, is over-dependent on men for economic matters that actually put women into domestic violence. When a woman doesn't have any money of hers, before she eats, before she does anything, she will take from a man. This is a very terrible situation for any woman to find herself. And she will continuously be abused. And some of them in the process, they beat them, they die. We see all sorts of domestic violence issues on the news. Women entrepreneurs, they are women or a group of women who they initiate, they organize, they run business enterprises. Women are capable of doing this, but they're not being equipped for it. Women, initially, it involves managing, controlling an enterprise by women. This sustainability by entrepreneurship or skill acquisition is connected to SDG Goal 9, which means industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Skill acquisition is a systematic art of learning to do something in order to earn a living. Just as I've been stressing, women need to be empowered, to have a sense of identity, to be on their own, to avoid the pressure of patriarchy in the society. This unequal power distribution, at least if she has her money, the power struggle, she will be able to partake it. Then she'll be able to pay for fees for her education, because education is good, but you need money. to pay the fees for education. There are limited access to job opportunities because we are women. Women have limited access to job opportunities. There are certain jobs that are just all there just for the man. A woman cannot break into it. Apart from this, I'm still on the examples that one can acquire as a skill as a woman. They are translating, public speaking, broadcasting, the photography, hair making, barbing, learning a second language. Learning a second language is good. There are international languages that can actually help one earn a good living, like French, Spanish, German. But going to these schools, they are not expensive. Recently, I went to a French school to enroll one of my children. The money to learn this is just, it's much. There's data analytics and tailoring. There's fashion design. Women are supposed to be involved in all of this, but women don't have access to this. Now, an obstacle women are facing as entrepreneurs. Women face obstacles, the negative socio-cultural attitudes needs to be looked into because this is the core issues that is affecting women. The cultural attributes, the culture that is holding women down. We have the widow inheritance. When a woman's husband dies, the men in the family will just come up and say that they want to inherit her, they must marry her by force. This is not a good practice. We have the inheritance rights. In most places and states in Nigeria, women don't have this right to land and to inherit properties. There's culture of silence. Because you're a woman, you're not supposed to say anything. Even if when you are being maltreated, then you should keep quiet. There is forced marriage. Even child marriage. In my environment where I'm in Abuja, you see little children from enlightened home being forced into marriages. All this continued because of the patriarchal system that dominates most society. But this system needs to be broken and leveled down. Just like I said, when I refer to Things Fall Apart, Mr. Brown was a missionary in that environment. His job that period was to help him breaking down all these traditions that are hostile to women.
Just 1 minute, Ma. Time is up. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that beautiful presentation. That was an amazing presentation. So we move on to our second speaker. She's back, Dr. Awa Abdukari. Please, over to you, Dr. Awa.
Good day, everyone. Thank you very much, Ms. Priscilla.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'd like to share my screen, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so I'll be talking about rough edges in women economic empowerment in Nigeria. Next slide, please. I think Business Day is sharing the screen on my behalf. All right, thank you very much. So this paper basically gives an overview of women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. Given the huge investments that we have, in infrastructure, in order to advance women's economic empowerment, the results have been largely patchy and disappointing, with political, structural, and operational factors being the debilitating issues. So this paper is calling for a total overhaul of the fragmented approach, towards a more holistic and integrated framework that will be underpinned by political sincerity, strategic prioritization, as well as symphony of action. Next slide, please. So an outline, I'll be looking at the concept of women's economic empowerment, the context in which we are dealing with, and then what the issues I see when it comes to our women's economic empowerment efforts, and then I conclude. So in this context, we'll be defining women's economic empowerment to include women's ability to participate in economic activities, having equal access to economic opportunities, having access as well as control over productive resources, having access to work, and then increased voice, agency, and meaningful participation in economic decisions. What really is the problem? Why the clamor? Why this time? Can I have the next slide? Maybe let me share my screen so that I can control it at my pace. Does that work? Okay, so I'll go ahead. The issue is that women have been marginalized in a lot of sectors in Nigeria, be it economic, when it comes to access to resources, when it comes to burden of unpaid work, which is not accounted for in our GDP, when it comes to asset ownership, when it comes to access to resources like land ownership, such a way that is patriarchal in nature. Also have cultural issues that access to some productive resources, as well as participation in decision making.
I think we are having a problem with Mrs. Dr. Awa's presentation, so we'll just give her a few more minutes. She's off. Oh, so just wait for some minutes to have her back. All right, so we're giving her 1 extra minute. Otherwise, Mr. Victor Aliko should just take over from where she stopped.
My name is Victor Aliko, and I'll be speaking on women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. I'd like to share my screen without wasting much time. So the topic is Women's Economic Empowerment We Project in Nigeria. Specifically, I'll be looking at 2021, reviewing the year's performance and issues pertaining to women's economic empowerment. So without wasting much time, go over to the next slide. Introduction. Women globally are agents of economic and social transformation, which is, of course, is something that is familiar to everybody. The role of women cannot be overemphasized in development. To transform a society, women must be incorporated and form a core of the development process of that nation. The economic empowerment of women is a necessary condition to achieve sustainable and desirable development. Of course, some economic scholars have argued from some school of thought that a society cannot be considered as developed except you have less of unemployment, less of poverty, and less of inequality. When you look at inequality specifically, look at it from the angle of income inequality and gender inequality. Economic empowerment of women has a strong relationship to the level of development, quality of life, and sustenance of a nation. Of course, there's a strong relationship, a positive relationship between women's economic empowerment and the level of development of a nation. That is, the higher the level of economic empowerment of women in a particular nation, the higher the level of development that can be said of that nation. It is also a common feature that can be seen or identified among all the advanced nations. Look at United States of America, you look at United Kingdom, look at Germany, look at Japan. All these countries are countries that accord women special preference or accord women a certain level of empowerment, not only economically, but of course socially, culturally, and otherwise. Now, if you look at it, it's what for us to talk about women's economic empowerment, it is most importantly the first step towards achieving SDG Goal 5, which is centered on gender equality. Now, looking at the concept of economic empowerment, you can look at it from 6 sub-concepts. You cannot talk of economic empowerment without talking of education, which is one of the greatest and widely acceptable form of economic empowerment for women. 2 is skill acquisition and training. Women's ability to acquire skills that will enhance their employability, that will enhance their ability to engage in meaningful economic ventures that will yield a multiplier economic effect for them and their families. 3 is employment opportunities. Of course, equal access to employment opportunities can also be categorized as a form of economic empowerment. Finance, when we talk of finance, we talk about grants, talk about loan, and we talk about aids. These are 3 different concepts. Loan is a kind of money support that, of course, has a high level of interest and you pay back with interest. Grant is a financial incentives without a payback. Aid does not necessarily have to be finance, but it can be in form of a support given to an individual or a group of persons. Also, rights to ownership of assets can also be considered as a form of economic empowerment to women. Right to ownership of assets among the 3 major tribes we have in Nigeria, almost all of them have cases where women are accorded less status in terms of ownership of assets or properties, or probably by virtue of inheritance. Then the last that can be considered as a form of economic empowerment is political inclusion, including women in part of the political process of any nation. Now, what are the barriers to women's economic empowerment in Nigeria? A lot of persons have talked about issues bordering on economic empowerment in Nigeria. What actually are the barriers that are impeding women from achieving some high level of economic empowerment here in Nigeria? One is religion. Religion is one of the greatest. If you look at the gender equality bill that was rejected as of December last year, 2021, by the Nigerian Senate, there are major reasons for rejecting that bill on 2 bases. They said 1, religion, and secondly, because the bill specified gender equality rather than gender equity. So religion, if you look at the Orthodox Christendom, you also look at Muslim, you also look at the traditional African society, all of these 3 religions have cases and evidences of where they have disenfranchised women in terms of economic empowerment, or they have not accorded women equal status with the male folks. Second reason is culture. A culture, of course, as Nigerians, permit that women on most occasions are being relegated to the background. Women are being made in most occasions to pay the gender sacrifice of forfeiting their futures, forfeiting their ability to attain certain heights in life, for childbirth, for child rearing, and for some other issues. So it's also part of a barriers that has impeded women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. Then lack of education, which is sacrosanct. One of the key factors that have impeded women's economic empowerment in Nigeria is lack of education. If you look at Nigeria has, at the moment, Nigeria has over 10.5 million out-of-school children, the highest in the world. And women constitute a bulk of out-of-school children in the world, most of which are coming from the northern part of Nigeria because of insecurity, terrorism, and kidnapping of school children. You look at the Chibok girls, look at quite a number of cases that have happened against school children. So lack of education, particularly in the northern part of Nigeria has impeded women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. Early and forced marriages. I read a recent report that says, I think certain religion or certain cultures in Nigeria, once a woman or a young girl, probably from the age of 12, she's able to see her first period, it is believed that her second period, she should not see her second menstrual cycle in her father's house. So they can be given out for marriages at either early stages or even at forced against their wishes. So these are certain situations that have impeded women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. Of course, forced marriages would imply a woman giving out or foregoing education, foregoing other skill acquisition and training she would have ordinarily acquired for marriages or for childbirth. Poor funding and lack of access to credit, absence of laws and legislation. In Nigeria, it is a sad reality. But of course, House of Senate and House of Rep, even as at 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, rejected 35% affirmative action for women, rejected several bills that were centered, specifically meted out for women for no just reason. Unequal opportunity is another barrier that have impeded women's access or improvement in terms of their economic empowerment. Now, there are some interesting facts we might want to look at in Nigeria. Just 3 interesting facts. Now, a statistics has shown that women in leadership and politics are still low in Nigeria. And as of February 2021, only 3.6%. That's a very sad figure. That is, what it implies is that 96.4% are for men, and only 3.6% of parliamentary positions are held by women. And that's why you find it common that when bills or policies that are supposed to protect women are being brought in the National Assembly, it's either thrown out or is either not considered. But in countries like US, we have over 26% of their senators are females. In countries like as high as Japan, they have almost 40% of the parliamentary position and leadership position are held by women. But in Nigeria, the case is different. Another second interesting fact is women are the worst hit in terms of poverty in Nigeria. Of course, Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world since 2016 to date. And statistics according to IMF has shown that 91 million Nigerians are living below the poverty line. When we say poverty line, $1.9 per day. And 60% of these figures, out of the 91 million, 60% of them, numbering more than 52 million, are women. The third fact said Nigeria has over 10.5 million out of school children, the highest in the world, and women make up a majority of these figures. So in Nigeria, women are at the back front or at the back burner of education. I saw a statistics recently that caught my attention. It said in the southeastern part of Nigeria, most recently, we're now having women transcending from primary education to secondary, from secondary education to university education, even more than the men in the southeast, because a lot of the men are now tilting towards business as against education. We hope to see a trend where over time, women will begin to take the lead in terms of education in Nigeria. At the moment, over 49% of Nigerians' population, according to INEC and Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, are women. So we have a figure of more than 102 million women in Nigeria. But when it comes to access to education, when it comes to the ability to transcend from primary to secondary, from secondary to university level of education, women are nowhere to be found. The next slide, for last year, we were able to look at certain women empowerment program that was done in 2021. Because of issues of lack of statistics, it was difficult for us to ascertain the number of women that benefited from a lot of these programs. But of course, we had the National Development Plan, NDP, that was launched by the federal government last year. It's supposed to be an economic plan from 2021 to 2025. The program and plan and policy is ongoing, but of course it was rated poor because it did not encapsulate a lot of women in the economic process and planning process for this development plan for Nigeria. What it means is that having over 49% of our population as women, our national development plan was not good enough to capture women in terms of economic empowerment. It's a sad situation. We have the National Poverty Reduction with growth strategy, the MPROGS, is currently ongoing, assessing it and looking into its ability to capture women or women inclusiveness or inclusion. The rating was also very poor. We have the National Policy on Micro and Medium Scale Enterprises, the NPMMSE, from 2021 to 2025. It's also very, very poor. We have the CBN Digital Financial Inclusion for about 6 or 7 states in Nigeria. The rating too is a bit fair, trying to include women to ensure they have access to bank accounts and they're able to involve them in financial transactions within the purview of the nation. And then we have the Export Expansion Facility Program, EEEP. It's completed. It was rated as being good, fairly good on women. Then we have the 2021 budget. It was a sad reality. For 2021 budget, there was no special provision for women. What was only captured was about 52.4 billion that was captured for women's economic empowerment and youth. It was not specifically or mapped out for women. It was only encompassed under women and youth, rather than specifically giving a special gender budgeting process like we have in most advanced nations. We have what we call gender-based budgeting, special budgetary programs for women to ensure that women are part of the development process or are encapsulated in economic empowerment. To the next slide. Yeah, we have addressing women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. How do we address women's economic empowerment in Nigeria? First, we must look at education. Education is a very sacrosanct and important factor we cannot overlook in terms of talking about women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. So second, education is one of them. Then secondly, we looking at gender equality. Of course, SDG Goal 5 is centered on gender equality. For us to address women's economic empowerment in Nigeria, we must address the problem of gender equality. Women must be given equal status, not even 35% affirmative action, not even 26%. Currently in Nigeria, Kogi State and Rivers State have been ranked highly in terms of gender inclusion in the policies. Yaya Bello was given an award by different women organizations for its inclusion in women. I think in Kogi State, virtually all either chairman or vice chairman in most local governments and councillors are women. And it's something that is commendable. Also in Rivers State, we have all the vice chairmen in 23 local governments in Rivers State are exclusively meant for women. So it's a form of gender equality and inclusion. Laws and legislations. We must make laws and legislations. Last week, when we had the World International Women's Day, I think a day after Wednesday, because some group of women or women's society group besieged the National Assembly, the House of Rep reversed their decision on some gender bills that was rejected. So it's a step in the right direction. We hope that we get to see more and more laws and legislation that will protect women exclusively in Nigeria. Look at enlightenment. People must be enlightened. What we have today, we have a lot of sonship preference. People prefer male children as against female children. So it's a very serious issue that people must be enlightened to understand the dangers that these things pose to our economy and to the society at large. Simple or elementary biology will tell us that X and Y chromosomes are being released by the men. So in most occasions, it's even the man that decides the sex of the baby, whether male or female. So there is a high level of preference for male children rather, as against the female folks. This shouldn't be the case. This should not be allowed to happen. So people should be enlightened and also do away with such practices. There should be special programs, special or exclusive programs for women in Nigeria. A lot of people have a review on 2021 budget actually showed that women economic empowerment was looked at from the angle of training. They did not specify what the training means. When you say training, which training are we looking at? Are you talking of IT skills? Are you talking of traditional economic skills that can help them, maybe fishing, maybe bead making, maybe dressmaking, or what exactly? So there should be special programs reserved for women to ensure that we improve women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. Also, inclusion in politics, leadership, and policy making. Somebody actually talked about glass ceiling in Nigeria, the second speaker that spoke. Yes, it's something that is very, very important. We should look at issues bordering on glass ceiling, because glass ceiling is one of the major challenges we're having in the private sector, especially in Nigeria. We have a lot of companies, organizations who would not probably employ somebody who's either a married woman because she will spend some part of her time trying to look after her family because they feel they are not more focused. So women must be included in politics, in leadership, and in policy making. Then breaking the bias. That's this year's theme for women's economic celebration all over the world in terms of World International Women's Day, celebrated on the March 8th rather, each year. Now let's look at this quote by our own Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She says, culture does not make people. People make culture. If it is true that the full humanity of man is not our culture, then we can and must make it our culture. He said, if it is true that the full humanity of woman is not our culture, then we can and we must make it our culture. This is by our own Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Of course, if you look at the lives of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Chimamanda Adichie, look at the lives of Awosika and several other women that have made strides in Nigeria globally, a lot of people celebrate them. In fact, I took particular cognizance when they were celebrating Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. It took a man who was a father to train her up to Harvard. It took her husband, who was never threatened by her career growth, to watch her grow to such heights. So it is not our culture, but we can and we must make it a part of our culture. In conclusion, the economic empowerment of women must never be seen and misunderstood or perceived as threat to men. A lot of people perceive, when you use the word economic empowerment for women, they consider it as women being economically empowered to begin to rub shoulders with their husband, to begin to rub shoulders with their fathers. No, it should not be misconstrued from that perspective. I'm a man, and I'm also speaking from the men's perspective. Women must not consider women's economic empowerment in Nigeria as a threat to we that are men. The empowerment of women in Nigeria does not in any way make us either less or even greater as men, but it would even help us. Imagine a family where a man and a woman are both working, and a family where a man is only the one fending for the family. You cannot compare the quality of life in that family with another family. So we as men must not see women's economic empowerment as a threat to us as men. Just as we fight racism, we must join hands and tackle gender inequality. The same way we think is ethically unsensible that somebody with a black and white skin have different futures, we should also see that the sex of a woman, ability of a man to either be a man or ability of a woman to either be a woman should not take away their innate abilities. It doesn't make her any less. Then women, when women are empowered, it is for the common good of our society today and for the future. It's something that we must take our primary responsibility in addressing these issues. Thank you very much, and God bless you for listening.
That was a very beautiful presentation, Mr. Victor Aliko. Thank you. Talked about the glass ceiling. That was a very beautiful presentation. So we have Dr. Awa back. So Dr. Awa, I would hand over to you. Just have 13 minutes, please. 13 minutes. So over to you. No. Dr. Awa. Okay. I think she's off. So we just move on to our next speaker in person of Emmanuel Bala. Mr. Emmanuel Bala, are you there?
Okay, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Yeah, I'm so delighted and excited to be with you all. First of all, happy International Women's Day to all the wonderful women all over the world. You people are really making impact, adding value in your various capacity. I must appreciate And I must also commend you for all you do towards making the world a better place. So quickly, I would like the host to share my slide. All right. A lot of people, some of the speakers were of the opinion that women are not treated fairly in the society. Women are marginalized. I do not totally agree with what they are saying, though to some extent, what they're saying is true, but not completely true, because in my presentation, I'm going to enumerate the enormous achievements, the impacts that various women are making, and even the effort of the government towards carrying women along in all their initiatives, their programs, and all their agendas. Now, I understand their pain and frustration, most especially the 3 bills that were rejected 2 weeks ago by the National Assembly. But the good news is that, after that scenario, so many women's organizations, civil society, they came out, they protested, and the National Assembly decided that those 3 bills will be reviewed. So that shows you the power of a woman. And that shows you that the society respects women. And I believe that this is just the beginning of greater things to come for every woman. Because I can boldly tell you that women are beginning to even enjoy preferential treatment, more opportunities even than men. So women are integral part of our society. And women globally are doing greater, wonderful things all over the world. And women are contributing immensely towards the growth of our economy, towards making the world a better place. Now, basically, I'll be discussing on 5 fundamental areas, which is finance and business, entrepreneurship and skill acquisition, economic empowerment, policy inclusion, and sustainability. Now, these 5 fundamental points, I'm going to enumerate how women are breaking the bias in these various sectors. As we all know, the topic for this year's celebration is breaking the bias. And I must say, and I must confess, that women are really breaking the bias in various sectors of their endeavors. And I really commend them for that. Now, let's go to finance and business. Now, last year, 2021 was a transformative turnaround year for majority of women. For first time in history, we have about 7 women that are piloting the affairs of 5 reputable banks in Nigeria. And these women, this is the first time in history that a woman is occupying that position in virtually all the banks. Now we have Yemisi Edun, which is heading FCMB. The first time that a woman is heading that sensitive position. We also have Mariam Olusanya, who is heading GTB Bank. And we have Bukola Smith, who is heading LCDH Machad Bank. We have Inenka Onyeli Ipe, who is heading Fidelity Bank. We have Tommy Somefu, who is heading Unity Bank. We have Ireti Samuel Obu, who is heading Citibank. We have Halima Buba, who is heading SunTrust Bank. And we have Kafilat Arioye, who is heading Lotus Bank. Now, this is just a litmus test. And this is also a sign that women are already changing the status quo. Because imagine out of maybe 30 banks in Nigeria, and 7 is being headed by women, is already a sign that we value the capacity, the competence, the capabilities of a woman. And for the banks, for these various banks to entrust their leadership to women shows that, of course, women have something to offer. So I can boldly say that women are already breaking the barriers in finance and also in business. Now let's go to entrepreneurship and skill acquisitions. Now we all know that entrepreneurship is the backbone and the bedrock of every developed society. No nation can develop until they take their entrepreneurs seriously. And that is why the reason why most developed nations like the US, the UK, China, Japan, and the rest, the reason why those countries is moving is because 70% to 80% of the economy is driven by entrepreneurs. And I can tell you that women are venturing into entrepreneurship wholeheartedly. And there are more than 100 NGOs, support organizations that are already supporting strictly women enterprise, SMEs. In short, the men are gradually beginning to feel threatened. I have to be honest with you, because I'm an entrepreneur and I mentor more than 1,000 young entrepreneurs, and I understand this great challenge because more organizations are coming up every day that are supporting only women. So women are beginning to get so much support, more than even the men, when it comes to entrepreneurship, financing, funding, and the rest. For example, Tony Elemelu Foundation, there is a program they do in collaboration with UNDP, where for the past 3 years now, where they support more than 1,000 women across Africa with $5,000 grant funding. And the good thing about it is that this money is non-refundable, because grant is money that is given to you that you don't pay back. So, and there's no such opportunity for men. Aside this, though, there's another opportunity where they support 5,000 entrepreneurs, but that one is both male and female. But this specific program is strictly for women. Now, there's also another initiative by FCMB Bank, which is called the She Ventures, where they give out loans between, I think, 100,000 to almost up to 5 million. Free interest loan, free interest, no interest, free interest loan to women, only women. No such opportunity for men. Then there's this Turkey trained co-working space where they teach digital skills strictly for women in Abuja here. You understand? And so many others. Time will not permit me to mention. There's more than 100 organizations that empower only women. Only women. I've never seen a program that's restricted to only men. I've never seen. So is that not? So that is to say that women are really getting so much attention and so much preferential treatment. So it is not totally correct to now say that women are marginalized or they are disenfranchised or they are not given attention, because all this evidence and facts I'm giving is clearly shows that women are greatly benefiting from the world at large. Now, then let's go to economic empowerment. Now, during the pandemic in 2020, the Central Bank of Nigeria came up with an initiative which they call the COVID-19 loan in 2020. And they gave out so much funding opportunities between 500,000 to almost 2-3 million naira to more than 1 million Nigerians. And the major beneficiaries were women. Women were the major beneficiaries of this wonderful opportunity. So I can assure you that that even the government, though they might not be doing enough, but they are working tirelessly in carrying the women along and ensuring that the women are protected, the women are cherished, and they are given a sense of a belonging. Because for women to get the higher share of these funding opportunities shows that the government cares about their economic empowerment. And there's so many other initiatives that has been implemented by the government in order to support women and in order also to encourage women. And it was very impressive when Mr. Victor was also enumerating about the various governors, I think Kogi and River State, that gives very slots to women in different leadership positions. That is impressive. And I'm assuring you that as time progresses, other states will follow suit. So to me, one thing I would say is that, in short, we the men, it is our responsibility to support our women and ensure that they unleash their potential and fulfill their purpose. Because I so much strongly believe in women, and I know that if given the rightful opportunity and enabling environment, they will even do better or even greater than the men. So let's move to policy inclusion. Now, I also, some of the speakers they were not happy. They was expressing their frustration how women are not carried along in leadership positions, etc., etc., and stuff like that. But one thing I want us to understand is we are a growing economy, and we are also a growing nation. And I believe that we are also learning. The support that women are getting now cannot be compared to 5 or 10 years ago. So that shows that there's progression. That shows that we are moving forward. And that shows that there's hope. And that shows that the future is bright. Now, Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala became the first woman in history to head the World Trade Organization, WTO. That's a woman. That is a woman. If the world does not believe that a woman can be able to occupy such position, she wouldn't have been given such opportunity. But because they believe in her competence and her capabilities, and that's why she's heading the organization today. Now, Mrs. Ibuku Awosika, she's the chairman of First Bank. Before she even became the chairman of First Bank, I think at some point, she was also the chief executive officer of First Bank. And she has been able to maintain high level of sustainability and impact in this bank. And she's making so much impact, even in the position she's currently holding. Now we have my deputy governor, which is from my state, the first female deputy governor from Northern Nigeria, Mrs. Hadiza Sabuwal Balarabe. She's the first female deputy governor in Nigeria. Don't be surprised, 2023, we might even have the first female governor in Nigeria. It's achievable. You understand? So it shows that we are really progressing, because our governor, in short, even in the cabinet, in Kaduna State, in the cabinet, the commissioners, I think almost half are women. Almost half of the cabinet are women. Among his aides, his special advisors, there's a lot of women occupying those various positions. So women are actively involved in policy inclusion. Women are actively involved in leadership positions. And women are contributing so much to the society. Now let's go to sustainability. Sustainability comes with vision and strategic planning. And from the enormous achievement of various women rocketed all over the world, and even in Nigeria, it shows that there's high level of sustainability. for women to do greater things. In short, I will not be surprised. Maybe in a few years, I know it might be difficult 2023, but I will not be surprised in a few years to come, a woman becomes the president of Federal Republic of Nigeria. As for me, I don't have issue with that. One thing I believe so much in merit. If I see a woman that is competent, that's all what it takes to lead Nigeria, I'm ready to vote for her. So the sustainability apparatus is very bright. And I see women doing greater things in the nearest future. Now, finally, women, I want you to know that there's greatness in you. Believe in yourself. You know, one of the major limitations or loopholes I've noticed among women is they don't believe in themselves. And women don't like supporting each other. That is one thing I've noticed so much about women. There's so much envy, there's so much jealousy among women. Sometimes women are trying to frustrate a fellow woman from rising, from succeeding. So all these really, women have to really work upon it. Now, let me give you something that happened in 2015. In 2015, during the PDP presidential primaries, Mrs. Sarah Jibrin contested for that presidential election with other contestants. Funny enough, she had only one vote. She voted only herself. You see, so even the women delegates in that place, nobody voted for her. It's really unfortunate. You understand? It's really unfortunate. You understand? Women are not ready to support each other. That is another major barrier I've noticed among women. Now, also in last year, just 2021, there was this leadership program we were part of, Nigerian Prize for Leadership. And we were just about 50 young people that were shortlisted. And they needed someone that will become the president of that set. Now, a lady indicated interest to also contest for that position. And we have so many ladies, I think about 20 or 25 of us, I think about 20 or 25 are women among us. No lady voted for her. In short, she had only one vote. No lady voted for her. So you can see that in as much as the bold women, the courageous women are desiring to occupy a leadership position or to do exploit, but their fellow women are not ready to support them. They are not ready to encourage them. So that also need to really be looked upon. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening. Once again, happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
That was a very beautiful presentation, Mr. Emmanuel Bala. I love the perspective in which you came from. So we'll have Dr. Awa Abdulkarim now to complete what she started. Dr. Awa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I apologize for the back and forth. It's the network.
That's not a problem. So you just have 13 minutes, Dr. 13 minutes.
I have 15 minutes, right? That's fine. Minutes. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to share my screen. I just got the permission. I'll just continue from where I stopped, right?
Yes, continue from where you are.
Okay. I'm waiting for the screen to come up.
Maybe while we wait for your screen to come up, you can just go ahead presenting.
Sorry?
While we wait for your screen to come up, you can just go ahead presenting. So we don't
Oh,
wait.
okay. All right, that's fine then. So as I was presenting before the network interrupted, I think I was on slide 5. I was talking about the context and the marginalization of women in various spheres, from economic to social to political to financial as well. And the last presenter, Mr. Bala, I think, said he doesn't know what the issue is about. He sees a lot of women in policy inclusion. He sees women in leadership positions. We are not saying there are no women. What we are saying is that the percentage is low. You were talking about first deputy governor, first female head of World Trade Organization. Since the inception of World Trade Organization, and we're just having the female head in 2000 and I think that was last year, 2021, right? And so you can see for a gender, the population of male, female is about 50-50, you know, plus or minus, I believe. So for the first female to be coming up in 2020 since inception, I mean, that says something, I believe. So we have some statistics here to back that up. I don't have the statistics in my head. I'm just going to pull that up. Okay, so you see that Nigeria, when it comes to, from the report of the Global Gender Gap Index 2020, Nigeria ranked 128 out of 153 countries. And in the 53 African countries, Nigeria is ranking 27th position when it comes to the Gender Gap Index. Also, you have only about 12% female directors in corporate boards. So those female directors that you're talking about, they only make up 12%, you know, in the whole country. You also have women having 20% of formal enterprises in the formal sector in Nigeria. You have women accounting for only 12.8% in the agricultural land ownership. You have women accounting for 41% business, micro business ownership. You have the gender weight gap being 23%. And if Nigeria should actually continue this way, then you're going to realize that we are not about closing this gender gap until in 100 years time. Yes, 100 years, you know, so we actually have a long way to go. And this presently has an economic cost. When you place monetary value on our gender gap, it's costing us about 15% of our GDP. So the issues, what really are the problem? It's not that Nigerians are not making we are not making efforts. There are a lot of efforts, you know, measures taken towards advancing women's economic empowerment at all levels, from global to national to regional to local levels. And Nigeria is very active in this. We are devoted to different areas, from analysis to research. You have development institutions, international organizations, and researchers being focused on this. You also have mobilization and advocacy. This is where the work of a lot of NGOs are most prominent. We have quite a number of them. You have projects and programs. NGOs are also very prominent in this aspect, as well as governments pursuing several women's economic empowerment projects and programs. And the last one is in the aspect of enabling empowerment, enabling environment. This is where we have least efforts, both in terms of resources as well as outcomes. So now, what exactly are the issues? Why is it that despite these countless interventions, we don't see commensurate results? The first one is excessive focus on structures with less funding, you know, of women economic empowerment. We are very quick to set up offices, very quick to set up women empowerment or Ministry of Women Affairs, commissions, different women focused offices and agencies, but then no adequate funding. So this lacking in resources, both in quantum and in quality. In quantum, for instance, the proposed budget for 2022 is 17.1 trillion naira, right? And we have only about 103 billion naira earmarked or allocated for women economic empowerment. That is less than 1% of the budget. So we don't have any budget gender sensitivity in our budgeting. So that's another one. Then the issue of capacity, the competence of the people in charge of different economic empowerment. When we lack experts and the right competency, then definitely our programs are going to suffer and not yield the desired result. The next one is political expediency. Most women economic empowerment end up in political calculations, permutations, and combinations, rather than building their core productive competency, which is key to economic empowerment. It's very pleasing, very attractive, politically attractive when you talk about women empowerment. So it's very catchy to garner support and vote, especially from the women folks. And this actually ends up most times in rallies and conferences and different initiatives, rather than the real essence of women's economic empowerment. And actually, it has tended to undervalue economic empowerment as well as undermine the results from economic empowerment. The next one we have is fragmentation, both vertical and horizontal. Vertical, I mean from the local government to the state government to the federal government, and then horizontal, even within the federal government. The women economic empowerment programs in Ministry of Women Affairs, does it tie into that in the women in the Ministry of Agriculture? Is it coordinated or in line with that of Ministry of Labor and Employment? So when we have these different programs, uncoordinated and fragmented, we are unable to harness the collaborative advantage. And there's a lot of missed opportunity in this case between and across the different layers of government, actors, and institutions that are involved in women's economic empowerment. The next one is political will. We all talk about women empowerment, but we can see the fate that was suffered by the gender bills, I think last week, but we are happy it's being reconsidered, and we are hoping it's going to end in positive. So we see, in fact, 35% affirmative action. That's not enough. It's not. It's supposed to be 50-50. That's the destination. But we take the 35% as a step in the right direction as part of the journey, and we hope that that 35% affirmative action doesn't stop in political parties or political offices. It can be extended to other sectors like banking and finance, for instance, in loan access or in credit access. The next one is operational and implementation challenges. We have inadequate funding, weak institutions, poor institutional and legal framework, managerial capabilities, poor M&E, that's monitoring and evaluation, and the likes. And then the last one is poor conceptualization. When I was going to start my presentation, I talked about how we're defining economic empowerment. It's not just about having the money. You need to have control over the money, how you spend the money, what you spend the money on, when you spend the money. It's not just about having the money also. You need to contribute to household expenditure. It's not also about just having the money. You need to be financially smart. You need to be financially articulate, and you need to be financially savvy. So when you just do empowerment programs and you do a lot of money, 10,000, 20,000 naira, and you say you've conducted empowerment programs, no. So most of these programs, or let me say a lot of these programs in Nigeria, when it comes to economic empowerment, they are narrow in focus, and a lot of them are kind of like a poorly and hastily conceived programs. So now to the imperatives, what exactly do we need to ensure that women's economic empowerment is result-focused and more efficient going forward? The first one, political sincerity. Let's walk the talk. We all talk about women's economic empowerment because it's politically catchy. You can rally support, global support, votes, and all that. But we need to actually act what we are saying, what we are talking about. It's all there. We have the slogans, we have the documents, we have the speeches, but the action what do, we don't actually act out what we do. So we need a recommitment and high level leadership when it comes to our our determination to actually empower women economically in Nigeria. The next one that we need is strategic prioritization. First, we look at hard and soft aspects of women's economic empowerment. The hard part is easy. I can always distribute hair dryers, distribute grinding machines, sewing machines, deep freezers, and you say you have empowered women. Okay, that's fine. What about the soft aspect? Now, this is the most difficult. You know, you need that enabling environment. A single law is going to have a more lasting impact when it comes to women's economic empowerment compared to 1,000 projects. What am I saying? When you have a single well-meaning policy, it's going to have, it's going to benefit women everywhere compared to 1,000 projects that will only benefit women in 1,000 targeted area. So what we need to do is prioritize that soft aspect of women's economic empowerment by providing the enabling environment. Secondly, we have the capabilities versus tokenism. Tokenism, doling out cash, doling out a token. You've not empowered them, giving them 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira. It's just a cash gift. In the economy that we are today in Nigeria, I can even spend that money in 20,000 naira in a day. For someone who is uneducated, an uneducated woman, you give her 20,000 naira, you're still leaving her uneducated. You know, you have not really you have not really empowered her when it comes to the real sense of economic empowerment. So we really need to focus on building the capabilities. And how do we do this? Let's focus on the 4S. The first one is the structure. Structure, I'm talking about the institutions and the administrative setup. The second is the skills. Let's look at skills acquisition and capacity building. The fourth one is the systems. This has to do with our administrative processes. And the last one is the synergies. How do these all come together, you know, to make sure our women's economic empowerment programs are effective? The third imperative, that we have here is the symphony of actions. We need to move from cacophony to symphony. How do we do this? By focusing on the 3 C's: collaboration, coordination, and cohesion. Collaboration between, within, and across all sectors of women economic empowerment actors, institutions, different layers of government, you know. And then we need collaborations, joint planning, joint action, joint monitoring, in order to ensure that there are no overlaps and these programs actually serve to complement one another, you know. So, and the last one is cohesion. We need coherence when it comes to the conceptual level, the policy level, as well as the program level. That's how they all tie in together. And the last one is the holistic integrated approach. We need an institutionalized framework for women's economic empowerment in Nigeria. Let's see women's economic empowerment as an entry point, you know, for sector and specific policies and actions of government in Nigeria. For instance, in the banking and finance sector, let women's economic empowerment be reflected in our credit policies. Let's see women's economic empowerment be reflected in the industry policies when it comes to our local taxes, incentives, ease of doing business, and the likes. When it comes to the educational sector, let's see women economic empowerment reflecting at the heart of these policies, be it formal education, adult education, or vocational education. And conclusively, it was underscored by the United Nations high-level panel that women's economic empowerment is not only the right thing to do, it is also the smart thing to do. And there's nowhere this is truer than in Nigeria, because we have a lot of resources. What we just need to do is to reprioritize and adjust our choices and processes to ensure that we get better value for our women's economic empowerment programs. That will be all. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Dr. That was a very beautiful presentation. I especially liked the aspect where you talked about the need for us to have more policies geared towards women's empowerment than lots of programs and initiatives aimed at empowering women. That doesn't include the real problem at hand. So thank you all for that beautiful presentation. So we have in our midst in our midst Mrs. Ruth Agbo, who is the National President of Association of Women and Trade in Agriculture and Trade, and also the Project Director for the Awita PAL project. So we call on her to give us our own presentation for 3 minutes. Is Mrs. Ruth Agbo in our midst? Well, I'm not sure she's around. So we'll just move on to the next agenda. We'll call on our partners, Mr. Kiki Omene, to give us a presentation. Mr. Kiki Omene, are you there?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Ruth. I am the President, Association of Women in Trade and Agriculture. I'm glad to be here today also to share my views on the topic sourcing at the International Women's Day.
I think there's a problem with your network. Mr. Kiki Omeni, are you there? We'll just give them 2 minutes.
Sustain the country economically. The SMEs, the MSMEs, mostly the informal sector, are doing the 80% of the labor force and producing over 60% of the farm produce, doubling as traders and farmers, yet faced with the challenges and the rigors of having to produce, process, and market manually. We talk about a situation where the country is looking inwards into agriculture, and we are talking about producing what we can eat and eat what we can produce. And we talk about the informal sector, the women, the MSME, the grassroots women that are into this farming, that are into the production, the processing. How much of such are they going to be able to produce manually to sustain the country? So there are so many more challenges that we have and that we have to look into. These women have, through their own personal efforts, been able to sustain their homes, their families, their children. Some have taken through micro businesses to train their children in school. Some have done so many. The times have changed. Gone are the days that men will marry, 4, 5, 10 wives, and then their affluence, their wealth is judged by the number of wives they have, the number of children they have, because they take these wives and children to the farm to do the farm work, the labor for them. And so the proceeds come back to the man, and the man sells them and become the rich and the arrowhead in the family. But the woman still sustains her children, through the little effort she's doing to be able to, keep the home going. But now, the women are burdened with so many things. They are faced with, the rigors of the children, sustaining the home and all of that. And then the wherewithal, the things that are necessary for her to thrive are really not there. And we are saying we seem intangible. So the effort with which women have achieved so far is not so much as compared to the much we are doing in the country. So you cannot come and silence us and say there's a women. We want to sustain what we have now. We sustain our tomorrow. It is not so. Now, practically, like I said, we go to the farm. During COVID-19, we saw the challenges. Women that were living literally on daily income, they sell and then they get small and then they buy stuff for their homes. It wasn't so. And then it took off, so many educated or the entrepreneurs took to selling their products online. And it became a system of the digital space. But how many grassroots women understand the digital space? How many grassroots women can take their produce, to wherever using Android phone or whatever to advertise what they have? Even if they do, how standardized are those products to sustain the economy? How standardized are they? And then when we go to the farm, we are faced with insecurity. We are faced with bad roads. Have you not seen, we are all in Nigeria, have you not seen where women sit on the bags of their goods, their produce, in a big lorry? They sit on top of those loads in a big lorry, 911 or pickup lorry, moving goods from one state to the other. Woe betides them if that lorry breaks down, because most times the quality or the roadworthiness of the lorry is not even good. And then you see women sleep on the road, with probably some of them carrying children, and then they are faced with the harassment from their husbands to look as if the job you are doing or the business you are doing is not right, or why did you go to sleep out? And then they receive attacks and all of that from all over the place. And so because we are illiterate, they tag women with the name poverty. Our second name has become poverty. We have lack of information. How many grassroots women know the policies that government have in place for them? Somebody spoke about the the export, something policy about export. And he said, he said it was good because it has been completed. But as I speak to you with a very good knowledge, so many women that applied for that, even to be trained to standardize their goods for export, have not really received it. And so why would you now conclude to say that exercise, that process has been completed, and then we assess it, we score it to be good? So most times these things are on policy, they are on paper, but the implementation, maybe after the first phase, it is not sustained. After the first phase, nothing happens anymore. And so people lose out, women lose out. And the testimony we hear is, it has happened. It has been executed, and so women have benefited, or people have benefited, and all of that. But there's really nothing for us without us. It is the women that know it pinches them. So if you bring them on board, if you bring them to table, and then they tell you what from each segment, from wherever, it will make them to understand, to speak more what we want, and not for people to take decisions about us. There should be more political willingness to accommodate women as stakeholders, to see us as assets and not liability. Policies that are given should be implemented in favor of women. And we have too many policies without action. Well, thank you so very much. I just wanted to add the little that I have, and I have been notified that my time is up. And I pray that all that we have discussed so far will come out in documents that will be implemented.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Ruth Abbott. That was a beautiful presentation. And just as she has said and she has concluded, there's a need for us to walk the talk, not just about making policies. There's need for us to back these policies up with actions. So are there any more comments from our presenters or our participants? Does anyone have anything to share or to add before we close for the day? Okay, Professor Omar wants to say something. Please go ahead, ma'am. Professor Omar, can you?
Yeah, I'm on. Thank you very much. It's a very good session, but the truth is that the divergence of ideas is a problem we have. It's pulling the resources together that will actually bring about economic empowerment of women and vis-a-vis sustainability. You understand? Just like one of our panelists was trying to say that women don't support themselves. I totally disagree with him. You know why? At the point of, if you remember when I was doing my presentation, I talked about the home. At the point of raising the boys and girls, that's where the problem starts, and we call it socialization. You orient the girl to believe that she cannot lead. So if other women find a woman who is asking something that looks as if it is in the domain of the men, most women will not want to understand. So we are trying to say this is an enlightenment program and should be carried wider than, I don't know what your range is, but women cannot be against themselves. It is lack of understanding, driven by ignorance, by the orientation they were given at home. Women are capable of doing anything to bring about development. So we are trying to say, put the resources together and support the women, and you will see that Nigeria will move forward. That's what we're talking about, development. I think another thing Musa talked about, Karim talks about, which I want to harp on, is, the marginalization and discrimination we find in society, including oppression, is what brings about the gender gap. Because those who have occupied position of authority, they want to maintain the status quo because it suits them well. So because of that comfort they enjoy, they don't want other people to come closer to corridor of power. So they try to ensure that any little opportunity they find, they bring about division amongst the women and amongst themselves and the women. So discrimination, marginalization, oppression, which are carried out through several avenues, are the things that are bringing about the underdevelopment of the society, because the women are not developed. So pull our resources together, support the women with all the policies, then redirect the strategies. I tell you, women will be up in the sky. Thank you very much. What happens?
Very much, Professor.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was a very beautiful contribution. So I just want to thank all our presenters, all our participants for joining us in this session. It was a very enlightening one. Most of our suggestions will be captured in the reflective piece that will be published. And also we hope that the government looks into some of these suggestions, which are very good, and make the necessary policies that will be deemed important in promoting women empowerment and breaking the bias in the country. So thank you everyone for
break the bias.
Happy International Women's Day.
Break the bias.
Break the bias.
Oh, sure, break the bias.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Are we good to go? Yeah. So we can leave. Can we leave?
Leave. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Rita, thank you.
Thank you.
Priscilla, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
you.